Hi friends, it's Katie Steinberg here and bringing you a special Christmas Eve edition of our Missing Piece Time Together. We are just recently home from a rowdy and fun and laughter-filled celebration at Orman Brewing Company of Christmas Eve, and I will share this evening's message with you without any further ado. I so love our messy, mixed up rendition of the Nativity that we do every year at Orman Brewing Company. For me, it points to the reality that this kind of birth narrative wouldn't have been neat and orderly, but would have been chaotic. I think we've so hemmed in a story in an effort to make it perfect and polished that we've forgotten a lot of the point. The authors of this story wouldn't have been concerned about historical accuracy or how well it could be portrayed in a Christmas pageant. They would have been trying to point to a truth so real that it defies the realistic bounds of historicity. What I mean is, some things are so true they can only be captured in metaphor. Like love, for example. Love can't be measured or weighed or clearly articulated without the poetic liberties of metaphor. I tell my kids, I love you to the moon and back. There's nothing literal about it, but it is so very incredibly true. And the greatest, the truest truths, if you will, are verifiable in many places, ideas, cultures, natural phenomenon, all providing us with these poetic, metaphorical representations of the things most real. Because I believe in a God that is love, I also believe that love has been written into awe-inspiring landscapes and star-speckled skies, and in ancient sacred texts. In billions of years old swirling galactic anomalies and Hebrew poetry. In subtle shifts from dark to light at winter solstice, and the story of a helpless baby revered as God in flesh. And I assert that these stories in their vastly different mediums do not contrast or detract from each other, but complement and affirm each other and the message they bring from an omnipresent God of love. When early Christians brought their message to the Celts around the 6th century, they didn't attempt to indoctrinate an already rich spiritual tradition. Instead, they listened to the stories of these so-called pagans. They learned that the winter solstice is about the coming of the sun in the darkest hour, about reaching the lowest, darkest point and turning the corner to head back toward the light. Quite literally, 3 days after the winter solstice is the first the naked eye can detect the lengthening of the day, the end of the cold, dark winter. And it's also Christmas Eve. And when Christians heard it, they said, we know this story. We tell it a little differently, but it's the same story nonetheless. It's a story of grace taking root in the darkness and brokenness and vulnerability. And the Celts went on and said, this day, this first day where the sun comes, tells us that rebirth will happen, tells us there is hope for new beginnings. And the Christians said, yes, when the S-O-N sun comes, it means there's rebirth and hope and new beginnings. Perhaps modern conveniences have caused us to become disconnected from the natural rhythms of dark and light, of the heat of the day and the grace contained in the cool of night, or the awareness of the bitter cold of winter and the shortage of food that portended, and the great relief, the world's great sigh when the warmth begins to return. Maybe that's why we've lost sight of the way the whole world cries out the good news that we are loved and good and holy children of the divine, confirmed by the seasons that always bring us spring and new life, confirmed by the gospel stories that show us we are not beholden to the corrupt standards of the world, confirmed by our own life experiences that grace and hope always follow heartache and trauma. Why would we ever want to pit those things against each other as if there was some kind of war on Christmas? Christmas wants us to know what the Celts saw in the solstice, what the farmer sees in the spring, what humanity sees after disaster, that it is precisely in the deepest dark that new grace is born, and that it is a reason to celebrate. Right alongside our Celtic brothers and sisters, the saints that went before us, a universe that inspires awe and everyone listening tonight. So raise your glasses and toast the humble stable and the vulnerable baby that reminds us we are made of God's stuff, and laugh because we know the light will come again, and sing because there's no more appropriate response to the joy, hope, peace, and love that this story brings. Amen. Merry Christmas, friends, and hope to see you both here again in the new year and in the flesh if you can make it. Our next gathering will be January 7th, and you'll have to find the details on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and you can also follow us along on YouTube. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.